We are live. Sudds-R-Us. Thank you. Thank you so much. And welcome to the Sudds-R-Us podcast. We're so glad that you tuned in. We have a great show and lined up for you on today. And yes, I'm flying solo today. My better half is watching the grands. And so, but I know he's here in spirit. So thank you again for all of your support to the Sudds-R-Us podcast. And God has given us another opportunity to bring you some thought-provoking content on today. And it's all around the concepts of the circle of love, which is God, marriage, family, and life. But before we get started, I do want to give a shout out to our son, Mr. Podcaster himself, who has gotten us started in this arena. He actually sponsors so many other podcasters on BS3 Radio, where we offer music, movie reviews, relationships, sports, you name it. It is on BS3 Radio. I'm sorry. And if you are interested in getting into BS3 Radio, the platform, or else coaching to get started in podcasting, that website and contact information is scrolling on your screen. He would love to hear from you. And of course, Sudds-R-Us, you can follow us on Facebook, IG, Amazon Podcasts, iHeart, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all social media platforms. We are there. And again, we thank you so much for your support. And of course, if you happen to have any questions for us, you can email us at sudds-r-us@gmail.com. So let's get started. We have with us today our beautiful daughter, Kamilyah Sudderth, and I'm just going to allow her to introduce herself as we start this podcast, which is our 30th episode of season number 2. And our topic today is Journey for the Strong, being a single mom. Go ahead, Kamilyah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kamilyah. I am a mother of 3. I affectionately call them the crew. I have a 6-year-old and twins that are 3. I am also an educator, and more specifically, a gifted testing coordinator. And I also am a owner of a educational consulting firm called Awaken Our Youth, which is all about awakening the genius that is already inside of Black and Brown youth. And that is my passion, along with being a mom. So I'm glad to have a conversation about my life has been, my journey, and kind of how I can encourage other single moms.
All right. Thank you so much. We're going to get into your journey, your life as a single mom 3 years ago versus now. So share that journey, or a part of that journey, with us.
Cool. So I initially was a single mom, as my mom mentioned, 3 years ago. Not to go into too many detail, because this is something that is going to live online. I do want to honor and respect my children. But my journey at the beginning was very difficult. I was very much struggling emotionally, struggling mentally, to be honest, financially. And I had twins who were 6 months old, and I had a son who was 3, and all of those things were happening while also trying to navigate my own emotional and spiritual journey. And so at the beginning, I cried a lot, and not just little tears, but very loud screaming cries. I was very angry and very frustrated. So I did cry a lot. I also, just reading my notes, so I'm not talking up too much. I was also on edge a lot. I was very defensive. I was very hypersensitive. So everything just kind of irritated me and made me really sad and really frustrated. So on edge, very much crying, very much sad, but ultimately just trying to find a new way, a new path that would lead to happiness. And so 3 years later, I don't even think I cry nearly as much. There are some times that I do cry, obviously, because I'm still human, but that is one thing that has changed a lot. Also, I'm way more aware and in tune of myself. So I had a very intensive self-care journey last year during the quarantine. And intensive meaning like going to therapy, working out, thinking about my eating habits, going to therapy with my oldest son, and just like really becoming clear about how did I get here, accepting things that I did not want to accept, and then also making changes that I thought would be for the betterment of my health and wellness. And also as a mom, it will trickle down to the betterment and the wellness of my children. So moving forward, a lot of the things that I'm doing now to help kind of mitigate or support in terms of building a new life that is new and different is just, like I said, being very clear about what are some things that I would like in my life moving forward, journaling about the things that I would like in my life moving forward, and then also just being clear about how I can be mindful of my emotions and things that come up so that I can help to best support my children, because those little people are ultimately looking at me and wanting me to be the best version of myself so that they can be the best version of themselves. So the 3-year journey has definitely been a lot of healing in terms of emotionally and spiritually, and then also physical healing as well.
Exactly. I can truly say how proud I am of you. And just your response to that one question alone, I do have my tissue ready, has really got me tearing up. So the stigma and the shame, you want to talk a little bit about that? And I don't know if I should couple this with the other question. I'll go ahead and do that. Or would you rather just do the stigma and the shame separate?
I'll just kind of talk about them separately.
Okay.
And then, we'll see. So in terms of the stigma, the initial stigma was tied to me being divorced. Like being divorced as a Black woman, as a woman in general, as a man as well, there's a stigma tied to that. There's always this association of it failed, it wasn't well, what are you going to do now? You're a failure, like things that could possibly be negative self-talk. And that is a part of the journey. So if you are watching, and that's a part of also me doing this conversation, is because there are women that suffer in silence, and there are women that are in the beginning stage of where I was in my healing journey that don't see a light. And so bringing voice and sound to the fact that there is a stigma that is attached to being divorced, there's a stigma that is attached to being a single mom, and allowing that to be something that other women can acknowledge as, yeah, I do feel this way, and just being able to accept that this does not have to be the end all be all, but it is something that I do need to process through. So a lot of the stigma attached to being a person that is divorced. And also I had to deal with a lot of stigma attached to being a professional woman, a Spelman woman that is divorced. And a lot of the times in like my social circle and just the network of Spell House, there's a lot of just really well-to-do professionals, very much like the uppity Negroes if we were back in like Booker T. Washington times. And so we try to uphold this like performative, like we're Spelman and Morehouse and we have this and we have that, but ultimately like we deal with real life issues just like everyone else. And so kind of humbling myself and taking off that ego of, as a Spelman woman, I can't deal with struggle. Like that's just not true. It's not real. It's not authentic. And so I really had to process and move through that stigma and that shame of being a professional woman that has to deal with something that is a very big, big deal and experience. And then also the stigma of single women or single mothers are not able to achieve their career goals. And that was something that was constantly told to me. And I won't mention the name or anything of the school or any professionals, but that was told to me a lot because as a single mom who has been in education for now 10 years, it was very clear that I would not be able to be in leadership. Like there were so many people that just could not fathom the idea of me moving beyond the classroom because I'm a single mom. And the the single mom hat includes dropping off, picking up if you don't have support, and we'll get to the support system, but dropping off, picking up, like taking kids to sports. If they're sick, being out when they're sick. And I have twins. So usually when one's sick, the other one is sick. So all of these things are attached to being a single mom, because oftentimes that person is the sole guardian and the sole custodial parent. So they're having to do a lot of the things that would have them to be out of the professional realm, or have them to be taken away from a professional position because they simply don't have the capacity to do all the things that professionals do. But glory to God, number one, because that stigma was shattered last year when I was able to move into leadership as a single mom. And I think it speaks more volumes to my internal journey, me believing that I could, me believing that I was worthy of anything above low salary job, like me believing that I was worthy of being tenured because of my levels of experience and background and expertise, and not accepting no as an answer. So the stigmas definitely exist. The sacrifice definitely exists, but there's also a fulfillment that you can have when you become clear about who you are as a woman, outside of just being who you are and what labels they put on you as a single mom.
Wow, that's profound. And just to piggyback on some of the things that you have said, Deidre says that the Spelman mentality is real. Thank you all for tuning in. And Trey says it's definitely important to be real with ourselves. And then Trey also says Morehouse mentality too, like you can't fail or make mistakes. Wow. You're living in your reality. Either way it goes, life is life. Life is life. And you have to roll with it. People often don't realize the impact of their words. And I can recall so many times hearing some of the words that you had to intake, or else allow them to just bounce off of you. So what's the impact of the words that you heard? And so often I would hear, poor baby, she got 3 little ones. You got your hands full. So I'm sure you've heard many more. Tell us about that impact.
Honestly, I think going back to my previous comment, it's attached to a stigma. Like if you're a mother and all your children are under 5, you must be struggling. There's just a stigma of, like, or a statistic, most Black women that are single moms are on this and they're on that, and they are doing this and they're doing that and not progressing. So people often looked at me in Walmart or Home Goods or wherever that I must be struggling. And honestly, it was very hurtful, and it did affect my psyche, even if I didn't show that to the person commenting. I definitely mentioned it to my parents, mentioned it to my sister, and kind of was annoyed by it. And I know I was annoyed, and therefore it triggered something in me. And I think the main thing it triggered was people just look at me as if I need assistance because I'm a single mom. And so it kind of put me into a hyper sensitivity, as I mentioned before, and also a desire to overcompensate. So because people are like, oh, you must need help, or oh, like your hands are so full, it's like, no, my hands are not full. Like I'm good. Like I don't need any help. Like, and it made me just kind of push away from asking for help because I felt like the stigma was associated with me needing help, and I didn't want to look like I needed help because that was like a negative stigma. So it was a lot of counterproductive behavior at the beginning, but ultimately it was in response to what was a deeper issue, which was the stigma.
Right, right. I can say that, you've embraced your reality up until this point, and that journey. And, I've heard this often, the different stages and phases of life. That you've just kind of squared your shoulders and you just, embraced it, and it was your reality, but you kept moving forward. So again, I can't stress it enough how proud we are of you. Daddy is on the what did he say? Morehouse. Oops, sorry. So Daddy says, yes, beauty starts with oh my, continues through the heart, mind, and souls of our daughters. Okay. Joe says your story will help someone going through what you have gone through. Exactly, Joe. Thank you so much. So, our next question is: do you feel that there's anything that you've contributed to your situation? If so, what would that be?
So to be honest, and I told my mom when she sent me the questions, this had me like sweating. This question had me so charged. And one thing that I talked to with my life coach is the fact that like when we are very charged and we're feeling charged, it's time to like disarm the charge, because the emotions that come up and the defense and the guard that comes up is associated with the fact that we are trying to protect ourselves from that feeling coming
Mm,
through. And so
mm,
initially, like 3 years ago, I would have been like, up, shut down, not talking about it. Please leave me alone.
mm,
But I have to be able to talk about it in order for me to heal through it. So with that being said, I did write a response because I didn't want to be long-winded. But my responses to situations were often based on who I wanted my ex-husband to be versus who he was. So a lot of my anger, my frustration, my bitterness, my rage was associated with who I wanted someone to be, having that expectation on that person that they had to be this way. And therefore, if they weren't, then that means that something is wrong.
mm,
um, versus accepting someone for who they are. And that's really where I am now in my journey, is being clear that everyone that does not have the capacity to hold your expectations. And it doesn't mean that you waver on your expectations. It doesn't mean that you change them. It's everyone just doesn't have the capacity to fulfill them. And
mm,
so me being upset that this cannot be fulfilled ended in me having anger and frustration. As a Black woman, I don't need to go into detail. Like, as a Black woman, what you do if you're upset, either you is a flight or flight. Like you're fighting verbally, or you're fighting hopefully not physically, but you're fighting verbally, or
mm,
you're flighting, like you're leaving. And so those things
mm,
are contributing to a lack of communication. And so if you're on edge and you don't feel safe to communicate because there's been boundaries that you're just struggling with, then oftentimes that communication causes us to not want to work through issues. And so there you are. So I think the biggest thing that contributed was just these understandings of fantasies that I thought would be, because my parents have a very beautiful marriage. They have exemplified Black love and what it should look like. And so a lot of what I wanted was based on that. And instead of me just accepting like where I was and what this is and building from that.
mm,
And then also going back to just being clear about the shadows. So like, even though I did not know always in the moment, this is what I want, I was not really clear, but I knew in the back of my mind that this is what I wanted. And so if you're not able to like really deal with the things in the shadow that are kind of driving your responses, then you're just reacting all the time to things. And so the things that I desired, I oftentimes would not talk about. And because of that, I wouldn't have issues being resolved. And so if you're not resolving issues, then issues are happening. And I think that's my biggest contribution, is I really fundamentally wanted certain things to happen. I wasn't clear on communicating those things. And I wasn't clear about the things in the shadow that were constantly affecting kind of what decisions I made and how I responded to situations I did not like.
wow. I'm going to share this comment because this is exactly what I was thinking. Jamara Nicole says, your story is phenomenal. Thank you for your transparency. And that's exactly what I was going to say. Your transparency, how important that is, not just for you, of course, but for others as well, so that you all can move forward and be healed. So, thank you again. Now, this next question talks about fear, and we know how crippling fear can be. There are 4 types of fear: fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of rejection, and fear of the unknown. Which one of these do you most deal with?
I would say fear of rejection.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to the stigma. And the stigma being a single mom of 3. So it's one thing to be a single mom of 1, maybe a single mom of 2, but a single mom of 3 is like, oh, wow. Like there's a video on TikTok, or not TikTok, I don't watch TikTok. There's a video on Instagram that I shared that it was kind of a mocking the interview that Kevin Hart had with, I forgot the guy's name, and he was mentioning, oh, I'm 40, 50 something. Kevin Hart was like, dang, like you're 50 something. And then I guess he saw the guy's face and it was like, oh, sorry, like I feel bad that I said, dang, I'm like really surprised. And that often happens to me. It's like, you're a single mom of 3, dang, like what in the world is going on? And so the rejection of life after this, like marriage, to be transparent, like dating, all of those things, I have a fear of rejection because I am a single mom of 3. And I think being clear again about what my expectations are, the things that I desire, and being clear about what I want my children to experience is what kind of pushes me through that fear of rejection. And then also understanding that my fear of rejection is based off of what I think would happen versus what has actually happened. Or if it actually happens, then I think that I'm unworthy. And so those types of things can kind of spiral down if you're not clear and able to say it. And I think that's kind of the point I'm getting across, is like, if you know that you're fearful of rejection, then when it comes up, you can just honestly realize that just because this rejection happened doesn't mean that I'm unworthy. It doesn't mean it will never happen. It just means that it's not supposed to happen right now. But one thing I do want to keep believing and honoring is the fact that I do want to experience the fullness of love, the fullness of joy. And so I'm not going to allow that fear of rejection to cripple me from having a fulfilling life.
Excellent. Excellent. Not allow. That's profound. And that's true. We all know that, fear can't live with faith, right? So always, keep kicking fear out the door, not faith, fear out the door, and defeat. Like you said, you're going to just keep pursuing those things that you want. So what is one thing that you would tell the single moms that may be watching?
I would say secure a support system, like period. A lot of the stigma of single moms struggling is because there's a lack of support system. And so if you want to move beyond the stigma and you want to have a fulfilling life, you cannot do it on your own, sis. Like you cannot do it on your own. You have to have a support system. And some of the people that hear support system assume that it's just family. Like my support system is legitimately my parents, my sister, and because they live in Atlanta. So they support me with watching the kids, with bathing the kids, with feeding the kids, with picking up the kids, with all the things that come with being a parent. They're able to fill in the gap and support me as I continue to try to pursue kind of my professional career. And also just, I have things that I have to do as a single mom to make sure that we have money. So I have to have 2 jobs. I have to, and we'll get to the conversation that I had with my grandmother, but there's just certain things that single moms have to do to secure the bag, basically, and to make sure that their children are financially covered. But nevertheless, having a secure support system allows me to do what I need to do to make sure that my finances are straight and also make sure that my children are safe, because we don't want to just have our children out here. We want them to be in a safe place, but also our support system can be our friends. So I have a very solid group of girlfriends that I just want to name and honor. So in addition to my parents who really hold me down and do a lot to support me, my sister as well does a lot to support me as the mother. I also have friends that support me as the woman, and those friends are people that are not in Atlanta necessarily. There are some in Atlanta, but they hold me up because a lot of the single moms are trying to toil between the woman and the mother. And we're oftentimes trying to suppress the woman and just focus on being a mother, which is fine. Like honor the space that you're in, but also being a mother is very taxing and very tiring. And so you want to have people that are uplifting you as a woman so that you can fulfill your duties. So Adriana Ibram, who lives in Baltimore, Maryland, sister for life. I support everything. I support her in everything, and she supports me as well. Devin, who lives out here with me, is a very beautiful woman with 3 children as well. Support her, and likewise. And my best friend Jamari, who lives in Los Angeles, we talk almost every day. We've been best friends since kindergarten. Phenomenal woman, phenomenal mother, phenomenal filmmaker. And then also, I won't forget anybody. Oh, Jessica, who lives out here, Chelsea, who lives out here. Those are mainly the people. Oh, Raheem, sorry, Matt Love. I have brothers too that support me. So Raheem is my life coach, also a brother. And Dr. Robert Mays, also a brother that hold me down. And so support system can be friends. It can also be family, but that is the most important thing to have around you, to not only support you, but to support your children.
Yes. Deidre says, here comes the tears. I know, Deidre. And then Daddy says, our strength to overcome the fears, failures, and fallacies come from the Lord. Amen. And you just mentioned a conversation that you had with your grandmother, who is my mother, who at 23 was a single mom, a single parent. She was a mother of 6. I want you to talk briefly about that conversation and some of the takeaways.
Yeah, so I just woke up one morning because I'm very impulsive, and I just wanted to. I wanted to talk to her because I know that there's very few people in my circle that really understands what I'm going through on a real level of intimacy, like complexity, understands. And because I'm a historian, I was a history major at Spelman. I also am very much interested in the voices of women from other generations, because a lot of the times their voices were not heard and what they went through was not given sound and given a platform. So even though I didn't interview her professionally and did anything, I just wanted to be able to have her story written down as a way to just kind of motivate me, because if she could do it in the 60s and 50s, then, I can also do it in 2021. So the main things that I took away was to be able to have a support system. She had her dad and her mom who lived across the street that were able to support her and taking care of the children. She also worked 2 jobs because bills had to be paid. So not feeling shame around having multiple jobs, not feeling shamed around honestly not being around your children as much as you want to be. That's just something that you have to sacrifice to make sure things are being taken care of on a financial standpoint. And then also her resilience in terms of her strength to just keep going when things were tough and making sure her children have what they need, but never giving up and never giving in and allowing the things around her, the oppression around her, the sexism around her at her job, everything to affect the way that she parented and the way that she took care of her children. And then one thing that tickled me that I can't actually really implement because my kids are really young, but having a tight ship, and I think it has a lot to do with that generation, but the older generation, the elders, their children had to have routine and structure, and this is what you're supposed to do, and don't mess up, because when I get home, it needs to be ready, because I don't work X amount of hours, and I need things to be ready to go, and have that structure, those chores that you cook dinner, you do this, you do that, roles in the household. And that to me was very important, because I don't want to adultify my children, meaning I don't want them to not enjoy childhood, which is why I'm very grateful my parents are able to kind of shield them from all these responsibilities that sometimes are put onto children when they're in a single parent household, like the little boy becoming the head of the house and things like that. There's no shame if that's what you have to do, but I'm trying to protect my children's innocence as much as possible. And so the idea of them when they get older having responsibilities, and that being a very pivotal thing that she had to do to maintain the household, I thought was very affirming to know that that's kind of something I should consider, I need to do to help make sure that my kids are self-sufficient, which is my goal. And then also make sure that I'm able to get things done, knowing that I can't do it all on my own when they get older.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, phenomenal woman, not just two, but three jobs. And yes, the ship was very tight, very tight. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the upbringing. And I'm so glad you had that opportunity because you never know. At 86, huh? You want to say one more thing?
Yeah, I just thought of something too. And she also had fun. Okay, I'm not gonna put all her business in the street, but she told me very candidly that she had fun. So I also wanted to honor the fact that Black women in the 50s and 60s were not just at home or not just at work all the time. They had balance, and I want to name that as it's okay to have balance as a single mom. It's very important to have balance, and my grandmother had balance, so therefore it's okay.
Yeah, she definitely had balance. So let's see. Here's a quote that I wanted to share. Thank you, JB Jones, Reverend Jones. We love the Sudderth family. Thank you so much. Love you too. It's been said that there's nothing single about being a single mom. Can you elaborate? I know you said you want to talk about your support system and why it's important to have this village of, like you said, you have lots of friends, local and in other states that still support you from afar.
It's important because it's very lonely because you're a single mom. Like the name itself gives itself to being just a lot of loneliness. And so again, my parents being there to help with the kids when I need a break is very helpful. Them being there to also hold me accountable for the way that I interact, the way that I discipline them is very helpful because you have to be able to be teachable and receptive to feedback, because a lot of the times as a single mom, you're thinking, again, the overcompensation that I know what I'm doing, I don't need any help, but that also, you may also not know what you're doing. You may need a lot of help. So being teachable and being able to receive feedback is very crucial, because ultimately the people in your village want you to win, and they want your children to be successful, and they want your children to be whole. And so anything that they're saying is of value to make sure that you're straight and the kids are straight. So kind of releasing that guard was very important, and just listening and being receptive to feedback was important. And then also my village, again, outside of my parents and my sister, is my friends who also just are able to give me what I need as a woman to make sure that I'm happy. Like they're checking on me. If I need a laugh, they're able to send me a laugh. One of my friends actually was the one that recommended me for the second job because she knew that I just wanted to make sure I have what I needed. If I need to vent, they're there. So it's never, it is a single mom thing to feel like you're isolated, but there are people that are available, that are willing, that are very genuine and receptive to being there for you. And so definitely reach out to them and, make sure they're actually genuine people. You don't want to tell your business to everybody, but definitely be comfortable with being vulnerable with people that genuinely care about you and your children.
Totally agree. Totally agree. So glad to be a part of that village. I know we're all saying we're all in. Yeah. We're all in. So, wow, we've come almost to the conclusion of our episode. Do you have any other comments before we go to the last phase of the show? Or does anyone listening have any questions for Kamilyah that you'd like to ask?
So my last comment was I do an affirmation with my children as much as possible. And I also do it with my students to help keep them lifted. And I just wanted to say that affirmation so that if you have children, you're a single mom, this is something that you could do with them in the morning, something you can do with them at night, or just randomly when they're struggling with big emotions to help kind of have them self-regulate just so that they can feel good about themselves. So the first line is, I love myself. And with my students, I have them do this like they're hugging themselves. I'm proud of myself, being a Black child who's gifted and Black, young, gifted and Black, being proud of yourself. I believe in myself, and they point to their brain, because you believe of what you can do and you're believing in who you are. I'm also having integrity. So I believe in myself, and I'm a genius, which is something I truly believe. All of them are geniuses. So it's, I love myself. I'm proud of myself. I believe in myself. I'm a genius. And I just want them to remember that forever, because even if I'm not here, physically, or I'm not able to be there for them because they're, in high school and they're in their own little world, I want them to always be able to remember that affirmation for themselves.
That is so sweet. Another thing you tell them to do is kiss their brain. So
that's a key for me. So my parents mainly homeschooled my children while I worked. The children are now in school now, but when they got something right, when they were at home learning, I wanted them to kiss their brain, which is, if you're an elementary school teacher, I know I did not make this up. I'm not claiming that I made this up, but it's something that elementary school teachers do all the time when they just have the children like kiss their brain like that, to just affirm that you're really smart and you got it right. So good job.
Yes. So a few comments here. This is our cousin, Charlesina. She says, so true. It takes a village. Always supporting us. Thank you so much. Marshall says, awesome. Mm-hmm. Opa says, amen. Circle of love. And she says, Cam as well. So I'm just in awe of this episode. Kamilyah and I have had conversations after conversations, and I'm just so proud of her to come on the show today to be able to share her journey, and yes, her testimony, and how she is proceeding on that journey onto greater things. So I'm so proud to see her where she is now. Versus 3 years ago, and all that God has done in her life. But I wanted to just share as well about my mother, as she talked about before, who was a parent, a single parent of 6. And I remember as the baby of my family, watching my mother operate in her strength. And I see a lot of times Kamilyah doing that. Determination and her willingness to face any challenge. She never avoided those tender areas of her life, and I know, in hindsight, I can remember seeing my mother. Yeah, there was a struggle. Yeah, there were tears. Yeah, there were moments where I'm sure she just wanted to throw in the towel, but she didn't avoid those tender areas. Little did we know what all of those were, but through those lenses, I think I captured and chose to adopt her tenacity. How she persevered tirelessly. And I'm sure, she's not the only mother or single parent that has done that without the needs of, approval or validation, and when she displayed that day in and day out, that was a continual inspiration for me. So I see that, so many times when I go visit my mom, is 86 years old, and how tough she is. And I just see, that doesn't just stop with her. Is what I'm saying. That's a generational thing. There are generational blessings. We talk about the other ones, but there are generational blessings that continues on. And for women like us that can overcome those obstacles to get to your wholeness and your peace. And that's what I commend Kamilyah for. She's overcoming those obstacles. She's, hurdling over them. Yeah, she might fall, but she gets back up. They're there for a reason to build her up and make her strong. So I just really appreciate, those things that as a single mom, she instilled in us. And the one thing that I heard Kamilyah say, keep your babies near. That's one thing my mother would always say. You can entertain the children that you are friends with your children at your house, because you don't know what goes on in everybody else's house. So we don't know the dynamics. And then that positive interaction. I can be such a silly child at heart sometimes, and I think it's so important, for parents nowadays to just have fun and keep that child inside of you alive. And then to maintain that balance. I heard Kamilyah say that before, where there's work, there's some fun with your kids, there's social life, there's family time, there's quiet time. All of that, comes into play. But one thing I love about Kamilyah is that she has a tablet for her older son, and she's already programmed in the times that he can have it. There are times when you can see, oh my gosh, children are in front of the TV on that tablet hours and hours, and not her son. So I commend her for that. I totally commend her for that. And so as you and all the single mothers that may be listening deal with the issues and the pains and the concerns, the brokenness, the problems, the situations, I just pray that you can continue to be healed and be whole, so your children, as you said before, don't have to experience all of that. And so as we do conclude, I can't say it enough how proud I am of Kamilyah. So this is bold. We talked about this as being a breakthrough moment for her. So if you could put some claps in the comments, I would appreciate it. Give her some claps, some encouragement. This is a bold step. And like I said, I'm really proud of her journey. Yes. Her journey and the healing and the wholeness, how she just denounced. She just did that guilt and that shame. I am so proud of her. And then to share with others. I was telling her before how I don't care if I'm crying. God, I thank God for this moment, how God will send people into your life that needs your support, that needs your encouragement. And oftentimes for me, I would shy away from those people because I did not want to deal with that pain anymore. It's called suppressing it and not wanting to deal with it anymore. And she's getting that in her life. And there's a twofold blessing in that, is that you are blessed, you become healed, and the other person reaps a benefit from it as well. So I see that you're bringing freedom to other people that may be operating in silence, that don't know what to do, that don't know how to process all of this stuff. So she's building confidence in women, young and old. She's doing that. And I'm so glad that God has given her this assignment. Is it going to be easy? Probably not. A lot of times, like I say, you shy away from the painful past because you don't want to relive it. But God says, there are times when you have to go through that process to get to where you have to be. So I say it again, as you sort and discard those tender pains of the past, while in the present, you're processing and you're progressing forward in your parenting and just yourself and your self-care. She's taught me a lot in that too. I must say I kind of tainted my children. They are go-getters, and it's just like other people, other things, and just forget about ourselves sometimes. And that's the selflessness. But there's also a point in time where you do have to care for yourself. So I love you so much. I thank you all for your comments. I don't know if you can see that, but there are claps. There are claps.
There are claps. There are thumbs up.
There are some kisses and some hugs, and everything is about to turn in your favor. Yes, Lord.
Come on, run around.
Marshall says, yes, it is for sure a challenge, but God will sort, discard, and allow you to progress and continue to be free. And she said it herself. Amen. No doubt about it. So Before we conclude today, we always conclude with the scripture, and I had two, but I think God has already confirmed what this scripture is about to say is appropriate for this time. And it comes from Psalms 34, verses 4 through 7 of the New International Translation, New Living, translation. And it says, I prayed to the Lord, and he answered me. He freed me from all my fears. Those who look to him for help will be radiant with joy. No shadow of shame will darken their faces. In my desperation, I prayed, and the Lord listened. He saved me from all my troubles. For the angel of the Lord is a guard. He surrounds and defends all who fear him. So again, thank you all for tuning in. As I fly solo here, trying to get everything lined up, we love you. We thank you. Enjoy your weekend. And be in tune next week. Another opportunity to share a great episode for you. I'm going to keep it at that, but be in tune next week. You don't want to miss it. Thank you, Kamilyah. We love you so much. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for tuning in. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.